Let's talk about some of the countries today. The sheep and goat nations, first of all, what's the difference? What's about sheep and goat? And the Bible talks about sheep and goat nations. Could we possibly have sheep and goat cities in America?
Think about it. Sheep and goat states, I'm sorry to say, New York, California, looking a lot goaty.
Yeah.
So doesn't mean there aren't great Christians there. There are great Christians in Israel at the time when the Babylonians came. There were prophets prophesying.
Wow.
But here's what I want you to think about. The church needs an update. See, one of our problems is we don't have a theology for the last days that is empowering. We have one that makes us nervous. We don't have one that makes us victorious. So the theology that I started praying about is that Jesus said when the Son of Man returns in Matthew 25, he's going to gather the nations before him and separate nations as a shepherd separates sheep and goats. Then I realized the promise that was given to Jesus in Psalm 2, ask of me, I'll give you the nations for your inheritance. Why is it that Islam can come along, to 500 years after the Apostolic Church, and they've got 7 nations with Sharia law and banking and culture all wrapped up tight. We don't have a single Christian nation out there except the ones like us that are struggling to stay on our feet. Part of the problem is the children of this age are wiser than the children of light. What the secularists do, what a smart Muslim does, is they get involved with the school boards. They get involved with the universities. They get involved with owning business, and that means owning media. And so the media can't be negative about them, and they make sure that the media isn't negative. They're in media and entertainment. They're in academia. This is what the left does. They get political power, and they have businesses with their own banking. When are Christians going to wake up and realize Jesus was given the promise of nations? But we almost feel guilty, Jim. We feel guilty. It's like Christians feel guilty about power. It's like, oh, we're not interested in power. All power in heaven and earth has been given unto Jesus. To the degree that we don't exercise it, we create a vacuum for the devil to fill.
Yeah, true.
This is different thinking. So I started looking at this and realized the Great Commission is go make disciples of nations, teaching them to observe all things. Jesus' end-time plan is that there should be nations that are going to be, what's a sheep nation? As much as you've done to the least of these, my brethren, you've done to me. It's the nations that do not persecute and molest the freedom of religion for Christians and Jews. Listen, I know you can almost hear the signs because this is new thinking, but it just means that we are desperate for an update of our own blueprint. Nations that will not persecute Christians and Jews. Why? Because Jesus says, as much as you've done to the least of these, my brethren, you've done to me. I was asking the Lord, well, who are my brethren? Jesus answers that because earlier on in the gospel, when he's teaching, they come and say, Master, your mother and your brothers are outside. And he says, wait a second, who's my mother? Who's my brethren? And then he points to his disciples and says, those that hear the word of God and keep it, that's my mother and my brethren. Now, of course, he loves his mother. She's going to be there at the end, but he's making a point. He's saying, don't think that my family is just going to be a political or an ideology. It's going to be the people that know me personally. So what the devil, the spirit of Antichrist, wants to do is shut down the mouths of Christians and the freedoms of Christians.